This is game 11 between these two gentlemen here. Magnus Carlsen on the right and his challenger Jan Nepo. Looks like Ian, but they call him Jan. I can't say that last name. Learn his last name when he becomes world champion. Yeah, you can try that out for yourself. So yeah, this is game 11. Magnus Carlsen versus Nepo. Opening strategy, we're supposed to try to control the center of the board. So you want to try to control those central squares while developing your pieces efficiently. You do need to have some sort of pawn presence in the center of the board. So obviously these grandmasters know that. This is, they're developing their pieces. They're getting control of the center of the board, accomplishing multiple goals at the same time. You want to try to control center. You want to try to develop your pieces. And you also would want to get your kings castled efficiently. And so this is the Goscio Piano opening. It's kind of a slow game, quiet game, I think is actually the Italian translation from the Italian. Magnus Carlsen playing black here would like nothing more than a draw. I think he'd be happy to get a draw, although he usually plays for the kill. Be okay with him if this becomes a draw because he has a substantial lead at this point. If all the other games are drawn, he just wins by default, essentially. He's got 3 wins already. So going for the Goscio Piano, and this is actually it's like Goscio Passimo variation, so like very slow variation. Not many tactics a lot of times in an opening like this. It's a very safe way to go. So if you're not looking to necessarily win the game, you're happy with the draw. This makes sense for black, being down kind of the tempo. This bishop maneuver seems a bit odd. Fully developed yet. Shouldn't we be developing the bishop or something like that first? Shouldn't we just go ahead and castle? Both those ideas are just fine. Magnus is just kind of preempting any kind of tactics that might occur. Let's just say you castle, then just something like this. Kind of forcing the bishop to back up, that you can capture. Now the pawn has 2 defenders, so the bishop must give way. The idea behind Magnus's move of pulling the bishop back early was just preempting any of that nonsense and just kind of maybe biding his time to see what happens, not committing perhaps. Although pretty obvious that he's going to be castling to the king side at this point with the pawn being extended out there like that. Okay, now both players castled. In most games, you're going to want to get your king castled safely early in the opening before anything crazy happens in the center of the board, although this position is pretty closed right now in the center. So essentially a fully developed position already. Definitely white is fully developed. A lot of times you like to get your rooks connected. White has this rooks connected. A little bit more attacking. They actually started attacking technically when they were in the opening, but now we are officially in middle game. White doesn't have any openings really for the rook, so in this case you usually will try to centralize. So setting up for some trades here, and an interesting capture here. Jan doesn't want to draw. So the challenger, white, does not want to draw. He wants to create some sort of positional imbalances, so there's opportunities for a win because the draws just don't serve his purpose. He needs to get a win somewhere in the next 4 games. He has to win 3 of the next 4 games. He's got to go for it. So this is just really complicating the situation. So white playing this move is the best move, but it makes things more complicated. And in order to prevent, just a bunch of trades and a draw, if you're in Jan's place and you need to win, then you need to complicate. So he does find the best move in doing so. Obviously all excellent moves at this point. And Magnus actually finds the absolute best move here. This is a blunder here. It's not super easy to see why. But the trouble is this pawn here can capture. It just kind of opens things up now. This is actually what Magnus plays here. And so this capture is played, and now the trouble is there's a nasty move for the queen. I should go ahead and say this is a good opportunity for you to go ahead and pause the video and think about what do you think Magnus played here. For my students, I'd love for you guys to go ahead and find the move. I hope it seems obvious to you if you consider the 3 things that I always mention we should remember. Checks, captures, lose pieces. Check for that. And yeah, this checking move here yeah, it's just very dangerous, causes so many problems. Basically, you can force yourself into a position where you can create another checking move. And actually, Magnus doesn't play the best move in this situation. Let's give everybody some time. So go ahead and pause your videos if you want to think about it. This is a good move to think about. And again, if you think about the things that I suggest to my students all the time, checks, captures, loose and semi-loose pieces, you should find this move, actually. Okay, yeah, so the best move is actually just to go ahead and capture with the pawn, of course. It's a checking move. You cannot capture with the king because of this nastiness, losing your queen with the skewer. So that's not an option. So if instead you capture with the queen, well, actually, you can get away with just going ahead and bringing the rook up here. It doesn't matter that you got a hanging knight. Like, who cares? I don't care. Because we can bring the rook over here. So let's just imagine they go ahead and take. Yeah, this is game over here. I mean, best move they have is actually queen to g3. The engines say that's the best move. That's a horrible best move to have to play because the rook's just going to take that queen for free, and yeah, you got mate coming very quickly. Obviously, you can't play queen here because that's just checkmate right off the bat. Magnus actually missed this variation. Instead, he played the knight move instead of the checking move, which leads to a lot more complicated victory, but one that Magnus Carlsen is more than ready to deal with, of course. Maybe he just wanted to make things a little more interesting. Okay, and this is the best move. Jan finds the strongest response to this subpar move that was just made by Magnus. He wouldn't have had an opportunity for any winning chances had Magnus played the other variation. Magnus positioning his knight, going for this threat. Again, not playing the checking move. It feels like that's just a natural move to consider. He's got a different plan, though, does Magnus, evidently. He's decided he's going to win some other way, and he's just going for it. And, he actually ends up just kind of simplifying big time in this position, playing for an endgame that only Magnus feels is easy, I guess. So he ends up trading off pieces and ends up instead of just winning the queen and finding, just an easy way to crush him early on, he instead goes for kind of a positional game and with some pretty cool tactics in it as well. Notice that Magnus is completely dominant in this position. He's only up a pawn, but his rook is having fun. He's having a party. He's got the open file. Rooks love open files, and he's just right up in White's face with it. He's got free reign of the board. So this is winning. Not because of a pawn advantage. A lot of times with these grandmasters, a pawn advantage is not enough to win a game. That's often a draw. But because Magnus's pieces are so active, that's really what it comes down to here. He's able to kind of have his way with it. And notice the H-pawn is a monster. Just a bit ominous there and a taste of things to come. So Magnus ends up kind of giving up his pawns over here. Like, I don't care about those guys. And now there's a pretty cool tactic here. So I guess actually capturing there is the best move, but it guarantees a queen arising on the board, unfortunately. So there's a move here to guarantee the winning, or the queen promotes. So let's take a few moments if you want to pause your video and think about this. Great thing to consider. Remember the 3 things we're always supposed to consider in every position, and see if you can find it. But yeah, Magnus just goes ahead and forks him, sacrifices the rook because a new queen is born. This would be a hard opening maybe for me to play against some players, but this is not something that Magnus struggles with. You want to centralize your queen. I don't know if he had a plan at this point. Just having the queen centralized provides so many advantages. Yeah, you got to be careful here right off the bat. You're dealing with a queen. She's a monster. Maybe you're trying to promote your pawn. That's a horrible blunder. Let's imagine you play this move. Pause your videos for a second if you like. What move should black play here? There's a crushing move now, and it's just pretty much the end of the game. See if you can find it. Pause your video. That was not played. Okay, that's not the move that was played. But yeah, queen here forks the rook and the king, winning the rook, and yeah, obviously the game's absolutely over at that point. Not what happened. That's not what happened. Jan is not a he knows what he's doing. So he plays this move. This is the best possible move, but there's really not much to be done here. Magnus goes ahead and gets his king safe. Now there's no crazy checking moves that can foil his plans, and there's really not much that can be done now. And this is just a completely lost position. So the pawn is hanging. There's no way to really save that one. This guy's under attack. Probably the best. So Jan actually, so Nepo actually resigned in this position. This was the end. So Magnus won the game. What do you do here? There's really not much you could do. I mean, try to save your your hope for the future, and that is the best move, saving that pawn. But then this pawn falls, and that pawn falls, and you got to get out of the way there. There's no checking moves. This is just, it's the end. So that was the end of this match. Magnus Carlsen just needed to win this one game. He'd already won 3 games. Nepo would have had to win 3 games in a row, including this one, in order to get to the tie breaks, which is basically impossible. You can't beat Magnus Carlsen 3 times in a row. So Magnus Carlsen now has defended his title. He's 5-time world champion now. He's been world champion since 2013, and I think he's got a break for a while before somebody can challenge him for his title. But Jan will have the opportunity to play in the candidates tournament. He will just automatically be seeded into that tournament, and if he wins, he can face him again. I think he gained some valuable experience in this lesson from the world champion. Anyway, please subscribe if you'd like to see more chess videos. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.